Welcome everyone to the final portion of the 90th anniversary of the Notre de Lourdes Parish. This slideshow is dedicated to all the pioneers, priests, sisters, and parishioners who established and grew the parish to what it is today. Here is its story. Documents support the arrival of the first pioneers arriving in the area in 1913. Monsieur William Saulnier is the first to have filed for a quarter of land northeast of 2, 7822 west of 5 on December 5th, 1913, which is currently owned by Louis and Wendy Onsil. In 1914, 22 pioneers settled in the area, including were Fred Erickson, Charles and Paul-Eugène Bourgeois, Jean Bonamour, Léon Dumont, Émile Debar, Charles Vaux, Johnny Joncas, and Alphonse Lorrain. Some descendants from these first pioneers are still living in the area today.
It was not an easy life for the first settlers. The first pioneers paid $10 for a homestead. To be able to obtain the title for a quarter section, they had to commit to break 10 acres a year and live on the land for 6 months of the year for 3 years. For most pioneers, the first summer they managed to clear and break a few acres and build a small shack.
The original town site was called Fowler and was located on northeast of 11, 7822 west of 5, called the school section. This land is currently owned by Louis and Wendy Onsil. In 1915, when the railroad was built, sidings were placed every 8 miles. The first was McLennan, then Donley, then Fowler. On the 15th of June, 1916, the first post office was opened at the Fowler siding, ran by Donavien. The railroad had completely missed Fowler, but in an effort to avoid the confusion between the names, the residents of Fowler asked to have it changed. At the end of the summer of 1917, Father Jean-Baptiste Henri Giroux celebrated the first Mass at Pantalon Tardy's home, on request of the pioneers. The residents then asked to change the name of the siding to Girouxville, named after Father Jean-Baptiste Henri Giroux, who brought many pioneers to the area.
The first church was set to be built on 5 acres of land donated by Mr. Isidore Biron in late summer of 1917. Soon after, Bishop Grouard came to celebrate an outdoor mass on this land in hopes of commencing the build of a new church. In 1918, logs were cut and sawed into lumber. The walls were put up, but the church was never finished. In 1919, Fowler was in the midst of building a church. The shell from the church in Girouxville was dismantled, and the lumber from the shell, along with the extra lumber, was hauled and used in the construction of the church in Fowler. This created some hard feelings for the residents of Girouxville. December 25th, 1956, Father Giroux passed away. He is buried in the Oblate Cemetery here in Girouxville.
In 1928, the residents of Girouxville decided to move the town site 2 miles west to its current location. When the residents moved to the new town site, they took down the Girouxville sign on the siding and brought it with them. The original town site was then renamed Dréau, after Father Jean Dréau, a missionary priest from France who served in the district.
On September 18th, 1928, the parish's first priest arrived, Father Joseph Hamelin. On October 21st, 1928, Father Hamelin celebrated the first Mass in a house owned by Joe Dumas, which was located on the site of where Case Horizon Credit Union used to be. There were 12 people in attendance, and Robert Lemire was the altar server. Father Hamelin helped with the physical and spiritual construction of the first church in Girouxville, which started in October 1928. He stayed until after Christmas, then returned to his original job of colonization. Following his departure, Father Cousinet would come from McLennan twice a month to say Mass.
October 15th, 1928. Work on the first church in the new Girouxville began. 4 acres of land was donated by Monsieur Eusèbe Bélanger on southwest of 15, 7822 west of 5. Eugène Pigeon was hired as a contractor to build the church that was 30 by 80 feet. On December 8th, 1928, the church was officially opened and blessed by Father Hamelin and Bishop Girouxville. Final construction on the church finished at the end of March 1929. The estimated cost to build the church was $8,053.
On December 8, 1928, the parish received its name Notre Dame de Lourdes from Bishop Girouxville because of his devotion to the Virgin Mary and his recent trip to Lourdes in France for pilgrimage. Bishop Pierre Théos, Bishop of Tarbes and Lourdes, had given Bishop Girouxville this statue of Notre Dame as a gift, of which he then gave to the parish on the day of its inauguration and is still on display today in the grotto.
The first baptism in the parish was that of Thérèse Goujon, daughter of Edouard and Alma Goujon, on October 14, 1928. She was born and baptized the same day. The baptism was held in her home, as there was no church yet at this time.
The first wedding celebrated in the church was on December 26, 1928, between Pierre Dussault and Thérèse Pelletier. They are the uncle and aunt of Suzanne Hood, Louise Johnson, Jerry Dussault, and Danny Dussault.
The first funeral was held on January 8, 1929, for Etienne Pigeon, a young boy who passed away when a tree fell on him. Etienne was the son of Eugène Pigeon, the contractor who was hired to build the first church. Etienne was also the first to be buried in the cemetery in Girouxville.
The first house moved to the new Girouxville was that of Alexandre and Rosanna Boisvert. Upon their arrival in June 1928, they built a large house, then 4 months later decided to move it to the new Girouxville. It took 11 days to move the house 2 miles with 1 horse, a wagon, and a winch. While the house was being moved, the family continued on with their daily lives inside the house. Their house was moved to what would be just east of the bowling alley today. Alexandre and Rosanna remain living in the town of Girouxville until their passing and are buried in the parish cemetery. Alexandre and Rosanna are the great-grandparents of Denis and Richard Boisvert.
On April 9, 1929, the first train arrived at the new site of Girouxville, with Father Normando and Father Hamelin accompanying new residents to the area, some of which were the Bouchers, Savards, and Simards. There was no station yet, and people literally jumped off the train on rough terrain. On April 19, 1929, the new post office was transferred from the old Girouxville to the new Girouxville. Sylvia Giroux was the first postmistress and held the position until the fire on December 8, 1941, which destroyed the post office and store.
More settlers continued to arrive by train. The top picture is taken in Edmonton in June of 1929, showing people coming from out east. The bottom picture shows Madame Alice Blanchette with her 6-month-old son, Henri Paul, arriving to join Hervé Blanchette, who had arrived in March of 1929.
On August 5, 1929, the parish received its second priest, Father Joseph Aldrich Normando. Father Normando was the first resident parish priest. He arrived to serve approximately 900 parishioners, of which 200 were students. Times were tough, and although the church was built, it still needed to be paid for, and a rectory needed to be built. Father Normando was ordained on July 8, 1900, and passed away August 31st, 1956, and is buried in St. Albert. He was also known as the priest from everywhere.
On August 18, 1929, Father Normando received permission to build the rectory. He moved into the rectory in November of 1929. The rectory was occupied by the parish priest until it was sold on January 28, 1950 to Jean Pigeon for $6,000. The first rectory is a current home of Mervyn and Cecile Brulot. Here is a map of the new hamlet of Girouxville in 1928-1929. You can see it didn't take long for the new Girouxville to be set up and called home.
Top picture is from August 1932. Father Normando blessing the roadside cross south of Girouxville. This cross was put up by the Lefebvre family. Bottom picture is of the West Cross located near Elfage Benoit's place, which is currently Nevin Elliott's place today. A cross was placed to the north, east, south, and west side of town. These crosses were believed to protect the people, fields, and livestock from evil spirits and to attract divine blessings. This tradition was brought forth from the old country.
Prior to 1929, students attended Filaire School, residing at the convent, or were sent to mission schools in Grouard or Peace River. In the fall of 1929, a classroom was opened in the Girouxville Church. Mrs. Mary Vestrat was a teacher with an enrollment of about 38 students from grades 1 to 7. On December 28, 1929, the start of the construction of the town school by contractor Gillis Dedmonton. In March of 1930, the two-room school opened with 45 students enrolled. Only one classroom was used because there was only one teacher until Annette Blackburn and her sister Marie-Paul Ancil arrived September of 1932. By the end of September 1931, 5 other schools had opened in the countryside: École Goujon, École Landry, École Petier, École Gautier, and École Bélanger. In 1933, École Culp opened, and in 1935, École Lefebvre opened.
Top picture is of Madame Mary Vestrat with her first class in the Girouxville School. Some of the students in the picture include Adolphe Bavard, Léo Bavard, Adolphe Linteau, Agathe Soucy, and Stéphanus Soucy. Bottom picture is of some students in the classroom in 1930.
On August 1st, 1934, Father Normando was transferred to Joussard, and Father Paul Serrin became the third priest in the parish. Father François Mayette served as his curate and looked after the parish in Lac-Magloire. Father Serrin had a strong understanding of the Cree language and was reassigned back to Joussard in 1935. Father Oscar Bouvert is the fourth parish priest from September 1935 to April 1937, with Father Georges Martin as curate. In 1937, the fifth parish priest, Father Paul Gagnon, arrives, and in 1939, he is reassigned to be the parish priest in Guy.
This is a picture of the inside of the first church in 1937. At the front is Father Alfred Briquet, Father Paul Gagnon's curate. The church was decorated for St. John the Baptist. Notice all the chairs in the church. This picture shows the inside of the first church in 1942. Notice that the chairs in the previous slide have been replaced with pews.
Here is a picture of a shrine inside the first church.
In 1939, the Oblate Fathers take charge of the parish with Father Léon Nadeau, becoming the 6th priest. Because of his great devotion of the Holy Eucharist, he insisted that Mass be celebrated regularly not only in the village, but also in all rural schools. He assisted Father Clément Desrochers, his curate, in organizing prayer gatherings at the humble grotto. To reduce the parish's debt, he organized a projection of moving pictures, movies, bingos, and bazaars. Father Nadeau was also responsible for the construction of the first convent and the coming of the Sisters of the Holy Cross, who took charge of the school. Here in the top photo is Father Nadeau and Father Trahan standing in front of the rectory. The bottom picture shows Father Nadeau standing in front of the rectory and the first church in 1943.
Here you can see, standing in front of the rectory, are Father Nadeau on the left and Bishop Langlois on the right.
Here is a visit from His Eminence Cardinal Ildebrando Antonetti, a cardinal from Italy. In the picture at the right of Cardinal Antonetti is Bishop Langlois, and to his left is Father Nadeau. Here is a visit from His Eminence Cardinal Ildebrando Antonetti, a cardinal from Italy. In the picture at the right of Cardinal Antonetti is Bishop Langlois, and to his left, Father Nadeau.
May 1942, picture of students arriving from Jean Côté for a pilgrimage. Father Desrochers, encouraged by Father Nadeau, erected the first humble grotto. This project commenced in May of 1942. This was just a temporary grotto. On July 13, 1942, 3 yards of concrete sand were given by Adolphe Boisvert, and Paul Sicotte donated 160 bags of cement to build the grotto.
On August 15, 1942, was the first regional pilgrimage in Girouxville. Celebrants at this first regional pilgrimage were Father Giroux, Father Nadeau, Father Marsan, Father Lachasseur, and Father Desrochers. The first official public pilgrimage was actually held on October 18, 1941, but this was not considered a regional pilgrimage, as only 22 local parishioners, priests, and sisters were in attendance. Between October 1941 and August 15, 1942, each parish held their own pilgrimage to the grotto in Girouxville. It was then decided on August 15, 1942, all preceding pilgrimages would be held as a regional pilgrimage on the 15th of August of every year at the grotto in Girouxville.
Pilgrimage on August 15, 1942. People would come from all over the diocese. In the bottom left picture, you can see the grain elevators in the background.
This photo is of the blessing of the sick in 1942 by Bishop Routier, Father Gagnon, and Father Serran. Almost 15 miracles have been accounted for over time from the pilgrimages. To name a few, Madame Yvonne Boucher from Jean Côté on December 9, 1941, Lucien Chaput from Tangent on August 15, 1942, Ernest Gosselin from Guy in July of 1944, and Normand Perry, a young boy from McLennan, on August 15, 1955. Monsieur Jean Lapierre from Girouxville was also cured on a day of pilgrimage. He had endured an accident as a lumberjack in McBride, which left him almost invalid. He came to the pilgrimage believing he could be healed, and right there in front of everyone at the grotto, he was healed. The details of these accounts can be found in Father Desrochers' memoir book.
In August of 1942, 4 Sisters of Holy Cross arrived to help serve approximately 980 parishioners from 137 Catholic families. The first 4 sisters to arrive were Mother Marie de Saint-Robert, Provincial and Local Superior, Sister Marie de Sainte-Thérèse d'Avila, Principal and Classroom Teacher, Sister Marie de Paul, French Teacher, and Sister Marie de Sainte-Louise Anna, Household Manager. The Sisters of Holy Cross resided in an old wood workshop which was purchased on July 26, 1942, and renovated for their arrival in August. The bottom left picture shows their dining area at Christmas.
Father Uldrich Robert succeeded Father Nadeau in 1943. However, his time in Girouxville only lasted a year. He was assisted by Father Raphael Lessard as curate.
In 1944, Father Desrochers became the parish's 8th priest and was one of the longest-serving priests. He originally worked as a curate from 1940 to 1943 for Father Nadeau, serving the Jean Côté parish. Throughout his time in the Girouxville parish, Father Desrochers was instrumental in building all 3 grottos, the convent, the schools, the second church, the Stations of the Cross, the museum, the establishment of the first bank, and much more.
The first project Father Desrochers tackled was purchasing a flower shed and a hall from Bréau. These were moved to the church property, and an addition was added, and this would then become the convent and the sisters' residence. The top picture is of the renovations and construction of the convent. $50,000 was to be the cost of the convent. The bottom picture depicts the finished project that opened in September 1946 to 62 boarders. The convent was operational from 1946 to 1957.
On April 19, 1948, Father Desrochers purchased a military barrack from Father Nadeau for $1,700. The military barrack was added in 1949 to the convent, which can now accommodate 101 boarders. The bottom picture is of the main convent building.
In these pictures, you can see the dormitory. The top picture shows the boys' dormitory in the 40-foot-long barracks. The bottom picture is of the girls' dormitory in the convent. As you can imagine, with the number of students living in the convent, routines were very important. They adhered to a strict schedule of putting the younger kids to bed at 7:30, the students in grades 2 to 6 to bed at 8:30, and the students in grades 7 to 10 at 9:30. The older boys asked permission to play cards quietly or to go out skating until 10:30. This was usually allowed as long as they were quiet when they came back in, as to not disturb those that were sleeping.
Here's a picture of one of the dining areas for the students. There were a few dining areas in the convent.
In 1951, this house of Adrien Bessette was purchased for $7,000. It measured 40 by 30 feet and was moved to become part of the convent for the Miliciennes du Rosaire. This is where the younger children lived while being cared for by the older girls in the school. This was to provide the older girls with a more domestic and family lifestyle.
Here is a picture of the Sisters of Holy Cross sitting in their dining room. The convent was closed in August of 1957. This ended an era of convents due to the industrialization of schools and the regiment of transporting students by school buses. Shortly after it was closed in 1957, the convent was demolished. It was greatly believed that the generations of students that went through the convent were marked with a good moral and academic formation. The top picture is of students that were now traveling to Girouxville to attend school after the Gautier School was closed in 1942. Henri-Paul Blanchette, being the oldest, was a driver of the school van. The bottom picture shows the change in transportation. The picture is taken around 1960, showing the bus driver Mrs. Luce Rochon, and students Maurice and Albert Blanchette.
This photo is taken in March of 1945. Standing behind the horse is Bedeau Assez Droit, second person ever hired as a church hand. His jobs included looking after the chickens, horses, and sourcing firewood. Sitting in the cutter is Father Desrochers and his curate Father Raphael Le Chasseur. Here is a picture of Father Desrochers with the most remembered Bedeau, Gonzague Gilbert, also known as Côte-à-Queue, with his dog, Banjo, and missing in the picture is his cat, Banana. Gonzague was a short man who was always joyful, liked teasing people, liked socializing, and was always up for a game of pool.
The population of the community continued to grow, especially thanks to the railroad. In this picture taken in 1946 is when the family of Zotique Tremblay and Ormidal Chauvin arrived. Bottom picture is of the Girouxville train station.
Father Desrochers invited every parish to annual pilgrimages to celebrate the feast of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary on the 15th of August of every year. From 1942 to 1946, 26 loads of rocks were brought from the surrounding area from parishioners to build the grotto. The top picture is taken in 1946 of the second grotto. Bottom picture is of Father Desrochers at the grotto. Top photo is of Father Desrochers in front of the new rectory. The project of building a new rectory started March 24, 1948. The picture on the right is Father Desrochers with Father Colin in front of the new rectory. This rectory was located between the new church and the old rectory. This rectory is still being used today as a home by Ken Elliott.
Top photo is of Bishop Langlois on the left and Father Desrochers on the right in front of the new rectory. The bottom picture is of Father Desrochers on the left and Father Clément Richer on the motorcycle.
On June 9, 1948, after many visits with Monsieur Eusèbe Bélanger, Father Desrochers bought the quarter section Southwest 15, 7822 west of 5 for $12,000. This quarter section is where the church is located today. He received authorization to build the basement of a future church and buys 5,000 bags of cement. Construction of the second church commenced in 1948 and was completed in 1949. The total cost to build the second church was $50,000, the same amount as it had cost to build the convent. September 21, 1948, Bishop Routier authorizes Father Giroux to sell bricks for $1 in all the parishes in the diocese as a way to raise funds for the future church in Girouxville. Collections were also held in other churches to help raise money. Funds came as far as from the cities of Shawinigan, Victoriaville, Drummondville, and Arthabaska in Quebec.
Here's a picture of Father Desrochers on April 16, 1949, standing in front of the second church. Notice the black crosses you can see in the background. These were the crosses used for the Stations of the Cross at that time. These pictures are of the finished basement of the current church, which would be considered the second church of the parish. Picture of the entrance to the grotto grounds in 1950.
Top picture is of the pilgrims in attendance at the 1949 pilgrimage. Bottom picture is of August 15, 1950, the anointing of the Blessed Sacrament with Father Majoric Baril.
More pictures of the pilgrimage in 1950.
Pilgrimage 1950 with Our Lady of Cap, Notre Dame du Cap statue. In 1955, there were 3,000 people that attended the pilgrimage.
Picture taken on August 15th, 1950 at the annual pilgrimage. Notice the bell tower seen on the new church. It was taken off the old church and relocated onto the new one. Today this bell tower is located on the grotto grounds. The bottom picture shows the bus named Cap de la Madeleine. Procession of altar servers and a nun to the grotto in 1950.
Here is a picture of some altar servers. Included are Raymond Benoit, Paul et Marcel Rochon, Gérard et Henri Paul Blanchette, and Wilbrod Remiard.
This is a picture of a store located on the church property that was used during the pilgrimages to sell religious articles and had a little restaurant selling food. Picture of the 6-room schoolhouse built in 1951. This was the start of the centralization of the schools. The school burned down on December 19, 1957. A new rebuilt school was opened on November 24, 1958. This school lasted until its closing at the end of June 1994 when it was left vacant. The school was demolished in 2001. Picture of students and a sister in front of the 6-room school in the early to mid-1950s.
Top picture is of the slide on the school grounds in Girouxville. The bottom picture is students gathered at the base of the slide. Pictures were taken in the early 1950s. Sister Sainte Thérèse de Villa is the one responsible for having built this slide. It was a slide used in the winter months as a toboggan hill. It was built because many students didn't have skates, but they could all share and use toboggans. A group of hockey players from Girouxville, including are François Sylvain, Ernest Guindon, Aboy Charest, André and Louis Sylvain, Claude and Roland Couillard. On December 20th, 1953, the parish celebrated its Silver Jubilee. The festivities began with a Mass presided by Bishop Routier. The priests and dignitaries were guests of the Miliciens du Rosaire for a noon meal. In the afternoon, the students presented a program consisting of songs and a piano recital. At 6 o'clock, a banquet was prepared and served by the ladies of the parish. On November 23, 1954, 125 panels with Marian inscriptions cover the walls of the church. 50 answered prayers were obtained. Some panels remain on the walls in the basement today. Notice the pews in the picture. They are the pews we continue to use today. On February 6, 1955, the Assembly agreed to contract M. Jean Saint-Arnaud to build another 50 pews at a cost of $15 a pew. Wow, wasn't that a deal? May 3rd, 1955, Father Desrochers and his curate, Father Jules-Édouard Larose.
To Father Desrochers, we owe the embellishment of the church grounds by planting the beautiful trees that we enjoy today. This picture was taken on May 31st, 1955, of Father Desrochers on the wood bridge that he and his helper had built that month.
November 3rd, 1954, an official location was chosen for the Oblate Cemetery just north of the parish cemetery, measuring 155 feet by 120 feet. It would become the location where Oblate priests would be buried. Many Oblate priests who were buried prior to this date in other cemeteries were exhumed and brought to Girouxville to be buried in the Oblate Cemetery.
Here is a photo of Father René Bélanger on his day of ordination, June 29, 1960, in Girouxville, with his parents Dieudonné and Laurentia Bélanger. To this date, and to our knowledge, Father René Bélanger is the only person to have become a priest from this parish.
Here is another photo of the ordination of Father René Bélanger. His ordination took place at 4 p.m. and was done by Bishop Henri Routier. Father Bélanger is surrounded by his father, his mother, and his 4 sisters: Sister Thérèse, Sister Laurette, Sister Orietta, and Sister Simone, of which all 4 were part of the Sisters of Providence. Also, we see Marguerite Bélanger and her husband, Louis Dubé, and Gérard Bélanger at the back.
We can't talk about our parish without mentioning many of the Girouxville women who decided to give their lives to serve God. We have a number of young women who have joined different orders, answering God's call from the parish. Dieudonné and Laurentia Bélanger had 4 daughters who joined the Sisters of Providence. Thérèse joined in 1944. Her first ministry was dedicated to childcare in Indigenous missions. Sister Thérèse was known for her patience and understanding of children. Laurette entered religious life in 1946, and her first ministry was teaching. She then became a nurse to help care for the sick. In 1948, Orietta joined the Sisters of Providence and spent a year taking care of orphan babies in Calgary. After that, she then spent most of her religious life working in Aboriginal communities. Simone, the youngest of the girls, joined the Sisters of Providence in 1950. She spent most of her religious life in childcare and working with seniors.
On August 2, 1929, Sister Marie-Germaine Rose-Brien joined the Sisters of the Holy Cross in Saint-Laurent, Quebec. This was a choice she made after her brother Edouard, who wanted to become a priest, passed away in 1920. After her brother's passing, her family was inconsolable, and her becoming a nun brought comfort to the family because she promised to pray for them. After obtaining her teaching certificate in Edmonton, Sister Germaine spent 35 years of her life teaching before she suffered a stroke.
Sister Evangeline Charest joined the Sisters of Holy Cross in 1933. She taught for 10 years in different schools in Quebec before returning to the area and working as Sister Guy Joseph. After returning to Montreal, she completed a nursing course and assumed the care of 6 sisters at Pavillon Saint-Joseph, the community's infirmary.
In 1950, at the age of 16, Sister Jeannette joined the Sisters of the Holy Cross. She spent 3 years in Montreal, then returned to Alberta to work in several missions. In 1957, Sister Jeannette took her final vows in Montreal and returned to the area to teach. She spent 11 years at the Jean Côté School as principal and teacher. Sister Jeannette devoted her life to the care of children and the sick. Her sudden death from a heart attack occurred at the age of 48. She is buried at the Sisters of the Holy Cross Cemetery in Edmonton.
Sister Doris Giroux joined the Sisters of Holy Cross in 1955 in Lamoureux, Alberta. On August 15, 1957, she pronounced her temporary vows, then started her studies to earn a teaching certificate. She began her teaching career in Beaver Lodge, however she did return to Girouxville to teach. In 1972, Sister Giroux took an RNA course to be able to care for the sick. She worked at the Sacred Heart Hospital in McLennan. In 1982, she professed her perpetual vows in Montreal.
Sister Liane Saint-Laurent joined the Sisters of the Holy Cross on August 9, 1959. She became a teacher and taught mostly in kindergarten or grade 1 in Grand Prairie, Donley, Girouxville, and Lac-La Biche. In 1980, she decided to dedicate herself as a missionary in Haiti, where she became principal of an elementary school with approximately 520 students.
On November 19, 1949, Sister Dolores Blanchette joined the Order of the Sisters of Providence. Her first mission was an orphanage in Calgary. Throughout the years, she did a number of various occupations, such as the supervision of children, the care of seniors, a cook, and a baker. In 1977, she left for Africa to work at a mission in Minya, Egypt. She returned in 1992 to help care for her ill mother and stayed in McLennan until 2015. She currently resides at the Providence Center in Calgary and still provides ministry to seniors.
On April 29, 1950, Sister Jeanne Lavaldière joined the religious order of Les Petites Missionnaires de Saint-Joseph. On March 19, 1956, she pronounced her final vows. For her novitiate, she was sent to Falaire to work in the kitchen at Le Collège Notre Dame.
Sister Jeanne Zusseau joined the Sisters of Holy Cross at the age of 16. After her novitiate, she came back to the area to teach in Falaire for 13 years. Then she became the principal at Girouxville School from 1956 to 1958. She then helped with the organization of a French branch at the University of Alberta. In 1967, Sister Jeanne became the Provincial Superior of the West, then was elected to General Superior for the Canadian Congregation for the Sisters of Holy Cross in 1973. Sister Jeanne is currently 98 years old and living in Montreal at Pavillon Saint-Joseph. On June 19, 1962, Bishop Routier gives permission to sell the first church to Albert Perrin for $300. In this picture, you can see the church being moved away. Also take note of the missing bell tower. It had been relocated onto the second church.
On August 27, 1962, Bishop Routier and Father Lavigne give authorization for the construction of the grotto and oratory for the pilgrimages. $25,000 was the cost to build the grotto. It was the architect company Dupuis and Donahue in Edmonton that designed the plan for the 25-foot by the 25-foot grotto. Each concrete beam weighs about 10,000 pounds and are 25 feet long. These are pictures of the construction of the current grotto. On December 7th, 1962, the first Mass was celebrated in the grotto by Father Desrochers amongst 12 other priests and brothers.
Here's a picture of inside the grotto in 1964. On January 20th, 1963, an additional $7,000 was allocated for the construction of the Marian Oratory inside the grotto.
These two pictures were taken on September 20th, 1964. Brother Donat Leblanc was the architect who engineered the Stations of the Cross. Monsieur Albert Jean of McLennan was the plaster who completed the Way of the Cross stations with statues purchased from the company Berninerie of Montreal. The cross and the roof of each station are estimated to weigh approximately 1,500 pounds.
On August 10th, 1957, Father Benoit Frigon becomes the 9th parish priest. He had big shoes to fill, coming in after Father Desrochers. The first project Father Frigon tackled was a remodeling of the entrance to the church basement. Then, under his direction, building of the third church. Here's a picture of Father Frigon in front of the new facade of the second church.
This is a picture of the new altar on October 12, 1959. Notice the flooring on the stage. It's still the same as today. On May 1st, 1963, Monsieur Arthur Savard was directed to proceed with the removal of the roof over the basement in preparation for the new build of the third church. Monsieur Denis Doyle, with the assistance of Monsieur Arthur Savard, directed the construction of the third church. Construction commenced on June 1st, 1963. On September 8th, 1963, the newly built church was ready for worship. The cost of this third church was $85,000. This picture is a view of the church from the grotto site on September 20th, 1964.
With the completion of the church, this would be the third in the history of the parish.
On October 8th, 1963, the third church was blessed by Bishop Routier. In the picture, starting on the left, is Father Frigon, then Bishop Routier.
Pictures of the Mass celebrating the opening of the current church on October 8, 1963. On April 13, 1965, a new electronic organ was purchased for the new church for a cost of $1,900. It's currently the organ we use today. The Girouxville Museum started to be built in the fall of 1968 and opened its doors to the public in 1969. Father Desrochers is a founder and was a curator of the museum. There are over 3,000 artifacts displayed depicting the history of the Aboriginals, the first pioneers, and the valiant missionaries. When trying to raise funds and obtain donations for building the churches and grottos, many items were donated in lieu of monetary donations. Father Desrochers accumulated these items over time and stored them while deciding what to do with them. Most items in the museum were donations to continue to preserve the area's history.
On October 21st, 1995, the Girouxville Museum celebrated its 25th anniversary. Starting on the left, you can see Father Desrochers, then Jacques Carbonneau, Irene Bovaert, and Carmen Ewing.
On August 4th, 1968, Father Lucien Lafontaine becomes the 10th parish priest.
Father Desrochers returned on June 17, 1974, to become the 11th parish priest. This would then become his second time as parish priest in Girouxville. August 23, 1976, Father Roger Priard becomes the 12th parish priest. He took it upon himself to see that the pilgrimages continued at the grotto. His other contributions to the church was overseeing the remodeling of the stained glass windows, construction of sidewalks, and landscaping around the church. The 50th anniversary of the parish was celebrated on December 10, 1978. The event started with a slideshow presentation narrated by Father Roger Priard, highlighting the early pioneer life. Take note of the choir up in the loft. At 4 p.m., a Mass was celebrated by Bishop Henri Légaré, co-celebrated by Father Desrochers, Father Bélanger, Father Frigon, Father Bouchard, Père Priard, Father Richer, Father Pinard, Father Dubuc, and Father Dubé. Altar servers were Aimé Ancil and Albert Simoneau. In the top picture, you can see a model of the church. This was constructed by Raymond Hull and is now located in the museum today. Supper followed in the school gymnasium. In conjunction with the 50th anniversary of the parish, they also celebrated Father Desrochers' 40 years of priesthood.
The 13th parish priest was Father Gérard Fortier, who arrived in August 1986 and left in August 1987. In 1986, it marked the end of an era. The two remaining Sisters of Holy Cross, Sister Granger and Sister Poirier, moved away. The Sisters of Holy Cross served the parish from 1942 to 1986. Throughout this time, 73 religious came and gave of their time to the parish. Sister Pauline Granger, born and raised in Tangent, joined the Sisters of Holy Cross in 1953 and began her teaching career in 1956. After teaching in various locations in the province, she settled in Girouxville in 1971, teaching grade 1 from 1971 to 1986. She continues to reside today in Falers. Sister Cécile Poirier spent 15 years in Girouxville doing a little bit of everything: teacher's aide, teaching oral French and catechism, librarian, and upkeep of the home.
Père Frégon then returned back to the parish as the 14th parish priest. In his time back, he replaced the stairs with a ramp at the front of the church with the help of Raymond Hull and Georges Deranlot.
Father Marcel Picot arrives in August of 1995 to be the 15th parish priest.
Father Robert Lemerise was the 16th priest and served the parish from March 1998 to September 2002.
In September 2002, Father Boniface Nkulu arrives from the Congo. He was a 17th and 19th parish priest. He was a parish priest for 1 year in 2002, then was reassigned to Falers Parish before returning as a parish priest from 2005 to 2008. Father Guy Noel Okamba was an 18th parish priest, serving from 2003 to 2005.
Priests in attendance at the 75th anniversary were Bishop Guimond, Father Boniface, Father Lemerise, Father Vantois, Father Belanger, Father Noel, and Deacon Bouchard. Here are some historical timelines that were displayed at the 75th anniversary. In 2003 was the installation of a new tin roof on the church. Estimated cost of this project was $109,000. The project manager, Jonathan Alexander, from Scott Builders in Edmonton, passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack shortly after the project was completed, at the early age of 46.
Father Maurice Marion arrived in August of 2008 as the 20th parish priest. Father Maurice is the only parish priest to date who had been married, widowed, and has 2 children. He was reassigned to Fairview in August 2017. Father Maurice was responsible for the installation of the elevator, construction of the new confessional, washroom on the main floor of the church, and the columbarium in the cemetery. He is currently retired in Winnipeg, where his grandchildren and children reside. The 21st and current priest is Father Christian Obana, a native of Nigeria who comes to us from Madagascar, where he served 15 years. He is fluent in 5 languages and has a bachelor's in philosophy, theology, and a master's in law and business technique. The top picture is Father Christian being blessed by Archbishop Petipa on October 29, 2017. Bottom picture is of Father Christian, Archbishop Petipa, and some parishioners on his day of installation in our parish.
Top picture is of Girouxville in 1950. The bottom picture is of Girouxville in 2015. A lot has changed over the years in the parish, but the one constant thing that continues to bind us together is our church and our faith. To all the pioneers that came and established this area and endured many hardships, we are forever grateful for all their sacrifices and hard work. To the priests and in particular the Oblate missionaries, we are grateful for the many blessings received over the years, for being leaders and examples of Christ, and for planting the seeds of faith that continue to grow in all of us today. Thank you to everyone who made this day possible, and for everyone who participated today. You are all part of this wonderful history of this parish.